Now, you guys know me as a dermatologist, but I have a hidden superpower I don't share too often because I like to remain humble. I don't want to make anyone feel bad out there. But I'm going to brag on myself a bit today because I'm feeling tacky like that. I am a baddie, as the youngins say, when it comes to growing unwanted hair. It's like a magic strength, a hidden gift. I don't want to make anyone jealous out there, but I feel I need to flex on that today because we're going to be talking all things Nair hair removal cream, how Nair works, how to use it. I'm going to be highlighting some serious grave Nair errors that if you avoid, you will thank me. Nair is a brand name of chemical depilatories. Definitely not the only brand out there. One of their competitors is the brand Veet. There are a ton of other brands out there that make hair removal creams. They also come in lotions, sprays, powders. These products all work to allow you to remove unwanted hair essentially by the same mechanism. They contain chemicals that dissolve disulfide bonds in the keratin proteins in the hair strands. And once they work their magic on the unwanted hair shaft, well, then you can just wipe that dissolved hair away and voila, your skin is hairless. It is not permanent. The hair will grow back. Why would someone want to do this? Well, hair removal creams like Nair, chemical depilatories, offer a variety of advantages as a hair removal technique. Number one is that in contrast to shaving, hair removal creams, once they remove the hair, it'll take a little bit longer for the hair to grow back. The reason this happens is that the hair removal cream dissolves the hair a little bit, just a tiny bit, if you will, below the surface of the skin. Kind of gets down into the pore, the hair opening. So it takes a little bit more time for it to be visible to your eye. Another advantage in my mind is the way that the hair feels when it's growing back. When you shave, you get a blunt cut. So as that hair starts to grow back, you get, well, stubble, that rough, coarse feeling, which is not pleasant. Because the chemical depilatories like Nair work to dissolve those disulfide bonds in the keratin proteins, there's more of a tapered, smoother end, so you don't have that rough stubble. Just like with shaving, chemical depilatories don't make you grow more hair. They don't cause the hair to grow back thicker, darker, longer, stronger, none of that. Because they're really just working pretty much at the skin surface and a little bit within the pore. They don't get down to the root where the factors going on to work to grow hair are at play. Another perk of using a chemical depilatory is that you're not going to cut yourself. Woohoo! Shaving also leaves you more likely to get little bacteria introduced around the hair follicles. You get these pimple-like bumps. It's called a folliculitis. Very annoying, very uncomfortable to deal with, especially in sensitive areas like the bikini area. That's not going to occur necessarily with a chemical depilatory because of the way it's dissolving the hair as opposed to actively cutting, which can have the bystander cutting, nicking of the neighboring skin. Chemical depilatories are also relatively easy, although as I'll point out, you can screw it up. In contrast to plucking or waxing or threading, chemical depilatories don't really damage the hair shaft down below the surface of the skin. They don't fracture it. So you're less likely to get a hair that grows back kind of wonky at an angle. And as a result, chemical depilatories can be a better option for people who are getting a lot of ingrown hairs, less likely that you deal with those ingrown hairs as opposed to shaving, waxing, or plucking, or threading, or sugaring. Now, one of the more long-lasting, if not permanent ways to remove unwanted hair is to pursue laser hair removal. Not inexpensive by any means. However, if you have light colored hair, pale skin, it can be difficult, challenging for the laser to even remove that because the laser works essentially on contrast, targeting the pigment of the hair. Chemical depilatories don't care. They will nicely dissolve the hair. Ooh, another rhyme. Nair, care, hair. Move over, Dr. Seuss. The hairy dermatologist is here. But listen, there is no ultimate hair removal technique. They all have some sort of downside, some sort of pitfall. So what are the disadvantages of using Nair or any chemical depilatory? Well, the way they work, again, is to dissolve those disulfide bonds in the keratin proteins in the hair. But they can have some bystander effect on the keratins and the surrounding skin. They can cause a pretty intense contact dermatitis, an irritant dermatitis. They can be pretty disruptive to the skin barrier, and if left on too long, they actually can cause basically a chemical burn. You might be allergic to an ingredient in a chemical depilatory. Of course, anything you put on your skin, there's always that potential for you to be allergic to an ingredient. When it comes to the chemical depilatories, they pretty much all have added fragrance because another disadvantage is that, well, well, they kind of smell funky, all right? And so they'll add fragrances, but fragrance is a possible allergen. It's a relatively common contact allergen. If you're sensitive, it can be challenging to find a fragrance-free chemical depilatory cream. I believe all of Nair's creams, lotions, etc. for hair removal all contain fragrance. And the way that chemical depilatories are formulated in order to dissolve the hair, they're at a very high pH. They are quite caustic to your skin barrier. The enzymes that maintain your skin barrier, they require an acid pH. You've probably heard of the acid mantle. Well, putting something really basic like a chemical depilatory cream, or people who like to use baking soda on their skin as a leave-on mask, that can really screw up pH, disrupt things for your skin barrier, lead to more irritation, transepidermal water loss. From a chemical formulation standpoint, they can be pretty harsh on your skin barrier. Now, brands like Nair, Veet, they don't want you to have irritation, so they formulate products with moisturizing ingredients, emollients, soothing ingredients to help reduce that risk. But if used incorrectly, used to the wrong area, they can be very disruptive to the skin barrier. So if you're someone who has a skin condition where at baseline your skin barrier is sort of impaired or the integrity of it is basically compromised, these may aggravate your underlying skin condition and probably are not a great idea. For example, atopic dermatitis, rosacea, if you're considering using these on your face, acne can have an impaired skin barrier. The other disadvantage is that they're not so great if you have thick, coarse hair. They end up leaving behind a patchy removal pattern, and that's not desirable. In contrast to waxing, plucking, threading, sugaring, these are all hair removal techniques that basically rip the hair out at the bulb. Using a chemical depilatory, while it goes a little bit deeper than shaving at the skin surface, because it's not to that level, it will grow back much faster. So you'll have to do it again a lot faster than you would had you waxed the hair there. If you wax a particular body site over and over again and on an ongoing basis as a way to remove unwanted hair there each time it grows back, over time it's actually possible to have a little bit less hair, to get a reduction in hair growth, because you're essentially causing traction alopecia. Traction alopecia we often talk about on the scalp, where a tight hairstyle can put a lot of tension on the scalp and cause hair breakage. But over time, if that tension is not alleviated, if you don't change up your hairstyle, well, it actually can scar the follicle and you get permanent hair loss in those areas. To a certain extent, that's kind of possible if you wax, thread, sugar, tweeze the same hairs over and over again. Then it is possible over time that you start to get a reduction in hair growth in those areas. With chemical depilatories, that's not going to be the end game. Likewise, laser hair removal, it really causes significant reduction in hair regrowth, hair density, and in some cases can be permanent. Chemical depilatories, this is something that if it works out for you, you like it, congratulations, because it's going to be something that you're going to have to keep doing once the hair grows back, because it's not a way to permanently remove the hair, and it will grow back a lot faster than some of these other methods. Not as fast as shaving. One thing that's really important to remember about using a chemical depilatory is that not all skin on every body site is exactly the same. Some areas of the body, the skin is going to be a lot more delicate, thinner, and more prone to sensitivity, irritation, contact dermatitis. So my number one tip when it comes to a chemical depilatory, whether you decide to go with name brand Nair or another brand, is to make sure you are using a product that is meant for the particular body site. This is so important. For example, if you're going to buy Nair, don't use their leg cream on your face. Don't use their leg cream in the bikini area. They have a product for the most common sites where you would be removing unwanted hair. And this is really important because the formulation will be maybe a little bit milder. It might mean you have to leave it on the skin longer, or maybe the formulation is really enriched with a lot more moisturizing ingredients. My next tip, which is really annoying and a lot of people just skip it because they think, oh, whatever, I'll be fine, is when you get a new product, you're trying it for the first time, always do a little test spot. And when it comes to a chemical depilatory, do a test spot in the area where you're going to be using it. So again, if it's a product meant for the bikini area, you're going to be using it on the bikini area, do a small test spot. Do a trial run in just a small spot, not the entire area. And make sure you wait at least 24 hours before coming to the conclusion that this product is going to be something that your skin is not going to have an adverse reaction to, if not 48 hours. So definitely take the time, be patient, do this little test spot thing, because some people go all in all at once and their skin skin reacts very negatively to these caustic products and they have a bad reaction. Much better to have a bad reaction the size of a postage stamp than to your entire bikini area. Never ever ever apply these onto a sunburn, onto a cut, a scrape. Never apply them to any kind of active skin problem, whether it be a flare-up of your atopic dermatitis, acne breakout. Definitely don't apply it to an active skin infection. If you have warts, avoid applying these until the warts have cleared up. Check out my video on how to get rid of warts. You'll recall from that video that one way in which warts can be spread is by shaving over them, because you introduce the wart virus into the neighboring skin. Well, that's also something that we see when people use chemical depilatory creams as well, because again, that product, that basic pH, it does disrupt the skin and make it more amenable to a virus spreading around and you getting more warts. So don't use this in areas where you have warts going on. Make sure that the skin is clean. Don't do this on skin that you have recently shaved. You want to make sure you have some stubble, some hair to treat. Otherwise, it's not going to work well for you and will be more likely to cause irritation to the skin because there's not as much hair to bind to. That being said, if you're treating an area where the hair is long enough to cut the hair first, because if the hair is long, thick, you don't need to be putting the product on those long strands to dissolve. All that's going to do is spread the product to more areas of your skin, increase the likelihood of irritation. So an easy way to cut down on the risk of irritation is to make sure that you cut the hair first, but you have enough hair that you actually have something that the product is going to be dissolving. When you apply a depilatory cream like Nair, make sure you wash your hands first, apply the product in a downward motion, and the next step is key. This is where a lot of people go wrong. Set a timer. Only leave it on the skin for the length of time recommended by the product. If you're using Nair in the bikini area, while the product is incubating and going to work to dissolve the hairs, you have to be still. You can't be walking around. You need to be still. You may need to stand with your feet spaced hip width apart. Just don't walk around, sit down, move around, because what will happen is the cream will transfer to other locations and can be really damaging. You don't want to get it on the mucosal surfaces in the genitalia, that's for sure. Oh my gosh, that can be brutal. So you've got to be really still. Once it is incubated on the skin for the recommended amount of time, then you're going to take a cloth, a towel that is damp, that has been soaked, and you're going to apply firm pressure and wipe down, and that'll just wipe those dissolved hairs right off. And then this is important, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. You want to rinse the skin copiously. You don't want any of that residue left behind. Don't be stingy. Rinse, rinse, rinse. Where people go wrong and cause a lot of damage to their skin and end up getting irritant contact dermatitis is they either leave the product on too long or they don't rinse it off sufficiently. It got transferred to maybe the neighboring area and they ended up with essentially a chemical burn. So make sure you rinse it off thoroughly, and afterwards you're going to want to apply some kind of fragrance-free moisturizer because the skin barrier is going to be very vulnerable, a lot more prone to transepidermal water loss, irritation. So apply either a fragrance-free cream, lotion, or petroleum jelly, which is actually going to be one of your better options because petroleum jelly really provides a great seal to water loss and protects the surrounding skin. The next day or two, you're going to want to be really gentle with the skin of the treated area. You don't want to use anything that could be considered a keratolytic on the skin because it's still pretty vulnerable. Keratolytics dissolve the kind of bonds between sticky skin cells and exfoliate. So you want to avoid those ingredients on the treated area for the next couple of days. These include glycolic acid, lactic acid, mandelic acid, anything marketed as an alpha hydroxy acid, salicylic acid, or anything marketed as a beta hydroxy acid, urea. You also want to be careful with benzoyl peroxide. It does have some mild keratolytic properties and will exfoliate. For the next couple of days, you want to avoid applying a topical retinol to the treated area or a prescription retinoid. Say you're using a depilatory cream, Nair, on your face, you're going to want to avoid using your topical retinoid to the treated area. You also want to avoid any kind of mechanical exfoliation, whether that be from a scrub, a sugar scrub, a harsh towel, a harsh washcloth. Just be really, really gentle with the skin for the next couple of days. You want to avoid soaps in that area as well until the skin barrier has had adequate time to recover. The skin's going to be really vulnerable after you've used a depilatory cream, so you want to be mindful of unnecessary friction on the skin. That's going going to be particularly relevant to the bikini area. Don't just hop into like really restrictive tight jeans or bicycle shorts or whatever and then go run, because that's a lot of friction plus sweat, which will further compromise barrier integrity and cause a lot of irritation. So wear some really loose fitting shorts. Ideally you do this maybe at night before you're going to go to bed. That way you just put on some like loose fitting cotton pajamas and you're good to go. You don't want to do this like first thing in the morning and then go about your day walking about, maybe going to the gym. Those things you don't want to do immediately after, but you just really want to be mindful of unnecessary friction. You want to be careful to protect the exposed skin from the elements. This time of year, your skin's more vulnerable in general to becoming chapped and having a barrier impairment, dryness, irritation, especially if you are out and cold winter winds chap your skin. So be super careful after you have used a chemical depilatory. It will leave the skin very vulnerable, including not just to cold winter winds and wind burn, but also to sun damage. It will allow for better penetration, if you will, of ultraviolet radiation. It'll leave you more vulnerable to a sunburn. So as always, okay, you should be protecting your skin from the sun, but even more important in this scenario, don't go tanning. It will make it more likely that you get a burn, really seriously damage your skin. You shouldn't be tanning anyway, but just as a reminder. All right, guys, so that's a wrap up with regards to chemical depilatories. I personally think they are a great option. Now, I often get a lot of questions about what about laser hair removal? What about electrolysis? If you want to know about laser hair removal versus electrolysis, you're going to want to watch the video that I'm going to pop up here on the end slate, because I go into a deep dive to how these different hair removal treatment modalities work, their pluses and minuses, because again, every hair removal technique has a downside. So check that video out next if that is something of interest to you. But if you guys like this one, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.